lesson, we talked about different ways sounds are created, or manner of articulation: stops, fricatives, and affricates. Now we'll talk about 3 more: approximants, trills, and flaps, also called taps. An approximant is similar to a fricative because there's a slight obstruction of air. However, the airflow is not turbulent. For example, the first sound in the word you is made by the tongue raising toward the palatal area, creating some friction, some obstruction. So these kinds of sounds are often similar to vowels and, as such, are sometimes called semivowels. Other examples of approximate sounds are w as in one and as in run. You can see how the articulators are not touching and they're a bit farther apart than what we saw in fricatives. So approximants can be divided into 2 categories: lateral and central. The sounds we just mentioned, the w as in one and as in run, and the y as in you, are all central approximants. Lateral approximants are L-like sounds, like in the first sound of the word love or the word like. So they're formed with an incomplete closure between one or both sides of the tongue and the roof of the mouth, and a closure somewhere in the middle. So like when you say an L sound in the word love, the tongue touches near the alveolar ridge. At the same time, air flows over the sides of the tongue. Since the air doesn't stop and there aren't turbulent sounds like there is with an S sound or a F sound, this sound, the L sound, is called an approximate sound. So the next sounds we'll cover are taps and flaps. A tap is usually a stop sound made very quickly. This is a distinguishing sound of most American Englishes, such as in the middle of the words water, butter, ladder. When I say these words, my tongue makes contact with the roof of my mouth in the alveolar region and moves back down the same way. Again, you could consider a flap the same thing. Some people consider a flap to be similar to a tap, except that the tip of the tongue is curled first, like a retroflex, and then makes contact with the post-alveolar region, and then it moves back. So some people might make a flap sound after an R sound, such as in dirt. You'll also notice that many people do not, again, differentiate between taps and flaps. So lastly, let's talk about trills. Trills are sounds that are made with a vibration or a series of flaps. So trills are sometimes called rolls. You can hear this sound in Spanish, like in words perro or arroz. Uvular trills are also common in some European languages, and bilabial trills are found only in a few languages. So again, flaps and trills are difficult to represent on these sagittal sections, so we're not including them here. All right, that's all for manner of articulation. In the last lecture, we talked about stops, both oral and nasal, fricatives and affricates. In this lecture, we talked about approximants, both lateral and central, and taps and flaps, as well as trills. So we'll look more closely and hear examples of the pronunciation of these sounds in a later lecture. Next, we're going to talk about voicing, or the state of the vocal cords. So be sure to review the last few lectures and we'll see you next time.